Welcome to Creative Brews. I'm Kristen, and this is your weekly dose of creativity, where photography, design, and life come together. So, grab your favorite drink, and let's talk about what's brewing. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Creative Brews. Today's episode is going to be another Align Design Wisdom. Of course, if you're following me on Instagram, you will know that I have already finished out the series over there as far as the short form content goes, and I have also shared the short form content onto my YouTube shorts. So yes, you can go back, watch that if you're interested in all of that. So for today's topic, we are going to talk about growth without alignment isn't success. Basically, aligned growth kind of looks like, and what that means, sort of, I guess, and all of this, and all of that. Today, again, we're talking about something that I think a lot of us quietly struggle with. Of course, with growth and what that looks like, what does it mean, and all of that. Sometimes I've heard some people say that they grew, but it still didn't feel right and stuff like that, because we've been taught to chase these things, to chase after the growth and all of that, if that makes sense. So what that would look like is more clients, more followers, more money, more momentum, more, and a lot of times when you're chasing after the wrong thing, or if you're not doing that strategically, I guess, I don't know if that'd be the right thing to say, but that's what I want to say, you can definitely burn yourself out. And just because you have more clients doesn't necessarily mean you're growing. Just because you have more followers, more money, more doesn't mean you're growing. So, a little statement here that I do want to say is, I think I've sort of said it just a minute ago, but it's that not all growth is good growth. And growth without alignment isn't success. So, yes, growth is often glorified without context. Examples being social media, business culture, whether the business culture rewards you. Nobody is really talking about alignment. When I say nobody, I mean, okay, I started this Align Design Wisdom as a way for me to not only talk about business topics and subjects, but to also teach myself and grow myself and do some learning here, because all of what I just said, you have to do as a business owner. If you're not doing these things as a business owner, what are you doing? You know what I mean? You're going to burn yourself out, and you're not really going to know exactly why you're doing X, Y, Z. So, numbers on social media and on your videos and likes and all these things that we're taught to chase after, more clients. Oh, well, make sure you talk to everybody in the room. You want to make sure you basically appeal to everybody in the room. No, you don't. No. So throw all of that old conditioning, old societal norms, old, way of thinking out the window. I really, really, really feel like there's a select few people that I follow and stuff like that as far as social media goes who are trying to break down the societal norms and the way that the system says you should do XYZ. Our system, just to kind of step out of the topic at hand here, just a little news flash if you didn't know, but our system was not built to have us succeed. So what do? You have to learn things, by researching or by, I don't know. I've done a lot of research myself. I've done more research. And I guess before I went into college, I did a lot of research as well. Just on, things that interest me and stuff like that. And nowadays, with everything that we have as far as YouTube goes and all this stuff, there's really no excuse to not know, if that makes any sense at all. So, yeah, that's basically why I started this Aligned Design Wisdom, because I knew that I was going down this road as a business owner who is a mom, new city, new business, so I'm going down this road and I'm building literally from the ground up. And it is one of the hardest things that I've had to do. I've built a business before, but it was a lot of building, obviously. I mean, whenever you're building a business from the ground up, it's always going to be a lot of work, a lot of researching, a lot of, am I doing things right? A lot of, I don't know if this is working, and all this other stuff. But anyways, if you are on the mindful side of things, I guess that's how I will say it, because you don't necessarily have to be spiritual. A lot of people, I feel like I kind of talk to a lot of people kind of in the community and stuff like that, and they think, oh, so you're Christian or you're spiritual. Religion and whether or not you're spiritual or not has nothing to do with what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is basically how you live your life. Because how you live your life is going to affect the business you're trying to build. If you're living a life that has no routine to it, no rhythm to it, no gratitude sessions, no self-reflecting, no visualizations, no, I think you kind of get what I'm saying here. You're going to burn out. You're not going to last. That's what I'm talking about. It has nothing to do with religion. It has nothing to do with if you're spiritual. Obviously, those things help. I'm not saying that you have to be spiritual, you have to be religious or not. I'm not saying any of these things. If you are, that's great. I'm also not saying, oh, well, you need to change these things that you are doing or not doing. No, I'm basically just sitting here and talking about these business topics and basically for this episode, what the difference is between fast growth and aligned growth. What do those two things mean? What do they look like? What do they feel like? All these things. So again, we're going to be diving into understanding the difference between those two things, fast growth and aligned growth, and why alignment is what actually sustains you. This is why I'm talking about a lot of mindfulness things here on my podcast. I honestly was not set out to be a mindfulness guru or a spiritual leader or anything like that. Or your mind, body, and soul. You know what I mean? It just kind of has went that way because I guess the way that I live my life. I live my life in a very mindfulness way, very spiritual. I am spiritual. Do what feels right for me, my family, and my life, and it hasn't led me astray. But I have gotten into more of the spiritual side of things, more of the mindfulness rituals or rhythms that I try to incorporate into my daily life. And that is exactly why I'm talking about these things, because they have helped me, so I feel like it would probably help someone else out. So yes, so, and before we move forward, again, you can be winning, quote unquote, on paper, but feel completely disconnected behind the scenes. This is more so what I'm talking about here. Or will be talking about through this whole episode. Okay, so let's go ahead and move forward. So fast growth versus aligned growth. So fast growth can feel exciting, validating, and even borderline addictive. I know we've all been there. Maybe you booked X amount of clients within the first year or whatever the case is, and you're like, oh my God, this is amazing, see? And I'm not saying that aligned growth is going to feel boring and not validating and all this other stuff, because it's also exciting, and that saying, you should, how does it go? You should celebrate your small wins. You should celebrate all your wins. And that's so true. Fast growth is often driven by urgency, comparison, and external pressures. It could look like saying yes to everything just to keep momentum going. And like I said earlier, you should not try to kill yourself to talk to everybody in the room. You should not try to kill yourself to appeal and to connect with everybody, because you're going to be setting yourself up for failure, I think is the best way that I can put it. May not leave room for intentional decision making. So, fast growth can pull you out of your own process. It can actually hinder you. You might start building a business you didn't actually intend to build. Or maybe you're like, oh, well, I have to say yes to this person. So, yeah, sure, I'll shrink my vision down to appeal to you and to help you and your business. Really, what you're doing is you're actually not helping anybody. Quite frankly, you are shrinking down your vision, so you're already hindering yourself. And then you're I know a lot of us, we want to help everybody. We really do, especially if you're a good person. Maybe you're an empath and maybe you are like, well, I can't say no to this person. I have to help them. As a business owner with X vision, whatever your business goals are, whatever your business vision and venture and all this other stuff is, like, I guess I'll give an example. I am the founder of KBCreativeNC. I offer mindful subscription-based design support for businesses that don't want to hire a full team. So if I'm sitting across from someone who needs, I don't know, photography or something like that, like, and maybe they're a business, maybe they're a potential client, but they want me to do a specific photos. They want me to do specific photos that I do not offer. But I'm like, well, I can't say no. Or maybe they're looking for someone who, I don't know, needs something that you don't offer. I think the best way that I can put it is that if you run X business and you come across someone who needs X service that you don't offer, do not say yes. Now, unless you plan on adding that service to your service list or your subscription service, whatever it is, then by all means, yeah, go ahead. But yeah, that's the worst thing you can do, because not only are you hindering yourself, the follow through on X service or whatever the service is or whatever the project is probably going to be either mediocre, maybe don't do the best job. It could also hinder your, what's the word I'm looking for? Your reputation, if I can say that right. So, yes, this person who, needs whatever the service is, if you don't do it well, they're probably going to talk about you to some other people and, word of mouth and all this stuff, and it could hinder you. So not only are you hindering you, but you're also having a potential moment where it could hinder your business and your reputation and all this other stuff. Like, you're not going to get recommended by people, and stuff like that. So, yes, and you also begin reacting instead of leading. So instead of, saying, wait a minute, let me sit with this for a minute, let me think about this, you start coming from a place of reaction-based scarcity energy, fearful energy, and stuff like that. So, aligned growth feels steady, intentional, and rooted. It is built on decisions that support your long-term vision. Again, you're not shrinking down yourself to fit in someone else's mold. Self-respect here goes a long way. That's all I have to say. You're not letting yourself down. You're not like, well, I'll do it this one time and then I won't do it again, or I'm only going to do this so that way I can get a client, or whatever the case is. and you're building something you can actually maintain. So here's kind of a way that, I guess, some questions that you can think of, or I guess to kind of put everything into perspective. So fast growth is going to ask, how much can I take on? How much can my plate hold before it tips over? Aligned growth asks, what actually fits? What actually feels right? What actually feels sustainable? Okay, so we are going to move into burnout despite success. So, you can be fully booked and still feel completely drained. I have been there. I previously owned a photography business, and I always thought, oh, appeal to everybody. Oh, I can't say no, all these things. And so, yes, I definitely have been there. You can hit milestones and still feel disconnected. And success without alignment leads to burnout. And you best believe, because what you're doing is you are basically spreading yourself too thin. You're taking on too much. You're thinking, well, this is growth and I've got to say yes to everything. Otherwise, it's not going to work. Or otherwise, So I'll share a little bit. I have met with quite a few people ever since building my business and stuff like that. I started my business in April of 2025. I believe it was April 12th. So it's been almost a year. Yay! Yay us! Anyways, it has been pretty, how should I put this? I'm not going to be unrealistic about it, because if building a business was easy, everybody would be doing it. So, definitely, some things have been easy, yes. But it has definitely been sort of slow, I guess you could say, but in the best way possible. I hope that makes sense. So what I mean by that is so 2025 was the year that I started doing what felt right, what just feels aligned, and all these things. So I've been in some moments, especially recently, I've been to a few business meetings. I've been to some business events and stuff like that, and they've been really great. Definitely have been very inspiring, and some of them I'll leave with, energy. I'm like, oh, this is great. We gotta keep this energy going, You feel inspired and you feel like you're on fire, you know what I mean? So, but I have been to some business meetings where, you go into these things with an open mind, and I'm definitely always open to hear what everybody has to say, what they need, and all these things. And sometimes it just doesn't align. Sometimes it, maybe they need, or maybe they thought you were meeting with them because you wanted to do some volunteer work, or, I've definitely realized that if you don't take your business serious, and if you always say yes to things, people are not going to respect you, whether they're people or other business owners, and they're also not going to take you seriously. And these are a few things that I've learned recently, sort of, from a few business meetings. Not every business meeting you go to is going to be successful. However, instead of looking at whatever it is in a negative lens or in a negative way, try your best to say, okay, well, this is redirecting me toward something better, or this is just realignment or recalibration, or instead of doing that, I'm gonna look over here and do this. Or maybe you need to just take some time and just kind of have a day or a few days where you kind of disconnect for a little while. So that way you can reconnect and see, okay, well, this is what this was teaching me. I definitely am a strong believer in that every meeting, every event, every encounter, or whatever you want to call it, isn't just a willy-nilly, I definitely do believe that everything does happen for a reason. So, yes, let's get back to it. I think I made my point. Yes, burnout doesn't always come from doing too much. It comes from doing too much of what isn't aligned. I think that is the best way that I can put all of this in a nutshell, especially when you're someone who spreads yourself thin and all this other stuff. Misaligned clients, rushed timelines, unclear boundaries, they all compound. So if you take on a misaligned client, then maybe another misaligned client comes along. Or maybe that misaligned client it's basically just going to compound on top of each other. So you're gonna feel burnt out. You're gonna feel like, why am I even doing this? And all this stuff. So when your business grows faster than your alignment, your nervous system feels it. Your nervous system takes a hit. So sometimes you can feel like, well, I feel like nothing's happening. I don't feel like I'm growing. I don't feel like I'm not growing. I'm kind of just in the void. But usually just around the corner is a breakthrough, or your aligned client comes along and stuff like that. Don't just say yes just so you can have a client. Don't just bend or shrink your vision down just to be able to say you're a business owner. If that's the case, if you feel that way, you're not a business owner. So I recently, in a business meeting, basically the potential client thought I was, I guess, looking for volunteer work or something like that, or I thought I was pretty clear, but I'm very proud of myself because I didn't take on what they were asking for or what they were needing. Instead, I guess you could say I clarified. I didn't apologize. There's nothing to apologize for. I clarified exactly what I was looking for. I held to that. And I'm very proud of myself because my old self would have let myself down. I would have gotten scared and been like, oh, well, maybe I just need to do this. Because, building a business from the ground up, from the literal ground up, is hard. Clients aren't just going to be coming and knocking at your front door. And just because you run a promotion on social media or whatever the case is, doesn't mean that you're gonna be gaining clients. It just does not work that way. So just think of it like this. Every yes shapes your business. Alignment should be part of your decision-making process, and it definitely is a part of mine. And like I've said before, it hasn't led me astray. I think I word it as I do what feels right. What feels right is aligned decisions. Not just, oh yeah, I just need to say yeah to everything. So before saying yes, ask yourself, does this support the direction I'm growing in? Does this align with the energy and capacity? Would I still say yes if I didn't feel pressure? Building systems that support you and not overwhelm you. This is basically choosing clients and projects intentionally. I guess that's what I mean by when I say I'm doing what feels right. I'm not allowing scarcity energy take over. I'm not allowing fear-based thoughts come into my brain and attack me. So, yes, allowing space for growth instead of forcing it. If you are in a situation where you are trying to make a decision on if you should say yes or not, and there's a lot of forcing in that, you should say no. Because when you're forcing something, guess what? It's not going to work. So it might work for a little while, and you might be able to talk yourself into it for a little while, but it's just not going to work. And I've been in a business meeting before where the client, our potential client, they were not a client, the potential client was asking for XYZ and all this stuff, and it was a lot of work. And also taking care of something else for them and all this stuff. And so I quoted them prices and stuff like that, but I don't know, the whole thing was just kind of strange because they then thought that they were looking for a volunteer or something like that. I can't really remember, but anyways, neither here nor there. It just didn't sit right with me. So of course, I heard them out and stuff like that, but I didn't stray from my vision. So I know, me as a business owner, I know that what I offer and how I work can offer a lot to my potential client. And I'm not just going to say yes so that way I have a client, or, that way I can try to help someone out. I'm obviously not going to be mean, but a lot of times when you're just trying to help someone out, it can take a lot from you, and I've learned that already. So definitely don't want to be making that mistake. So here's some reframing, I guess you can kind of look at here, is that you don't need to take every opportunity to grow, as I've basically been saying. You need to take the right opportunities, and only you will know that as the business owner. So just remember that alignment isn't something you check after you grow. It's something you build with. So we're going to go ahead and move into the reflection segment, and then I have some homework. So, I just want to invite you all who's listening, which, by the way, thank you so much for all the support. It definitely helps and does not go unnoticed. I've gotten quite a bit of support and some pretty cool comments and stuff like that. It definitely feels good. And I'm just glad that I can help some people out there, or, you know, maybe be the good in someone's day or something like that. So, yes, the support is amazing. And again, if you want to, all of my links will be down below. I also wrote a book called The Daily Divine, a book of soulful truths and everyday wisdom, which I'm so excited because it is now available as an audiobook. So it's physical, it's ebook, and it's an audiobook. So literally anybody can read. I definitely was honing in on the accessibility train. Might go back to the book and redo some of the fonts, or the font that I used. So, anyways, that's a completely different subject. So, yeah, make sure to rate, subscribe, follow. You can comment, you can DM me, and all of that stuff if you all have questions. Yes, so, yeah, again, where in my business am I growing but not feeling aligned? These are some things that you can kind of just slow down, sit with, think about, reflect on, visualize if that's something that you do or if it feels right. Ask yourself, am I chasing growth or chasing it intentionally? What opportunities am I saying yes to out of fear instead of alignment? Does my current level of growth actually support my life? And these are questions that you can actually hear, write them down, actually answer them if that feels good for you, or you can just sit, think about it, go back, listen to it again, and just really think about it. You don't necessarily have to write these down and fill it out. Yes, so reflection here, just want to point this out or say this. Just because something is growing doesn't mean it's aligned. Please go back, hear that again. I think I said that in the beginning. But yes, it's so very true. Okay, so you may or may not be able to hear the laundry or my son in the background. I'm trying to get the last little bit of this episode done. So, I believe where I kind of left off was the homework / integration. And you can kind of use this to, basically kind of like audit where your growth standpoint is, or basically like a growth audit, if that's really how you want to look at it. So look at your current growth and ask, what feels aligned, what feels forced, and what feels heavy. And you could literally write these down, you can journal about it, or you can just kind of think about it, meditate on it, and all of that. So, and also ask yourself, what would I keep? What would I release? What would I do differently moving forward? There's also sort of like a decision filter that you can kind of sort of like teach yourself, I guess. So create a simple alignment filter for the future, or for your future decisions. These would look like, does this align with my vision? Which honestly is what I do. Does this respect my energy? Or you could even say, does this align with my energy? Does this support sustainable growth? These are actually more so sort of what I ask myself internally from time to time. If it's not a clear yes, it's a no. I think that's the best way I can put. everything, like this whole episode in a nutshell. And also try doing a capacity check. Be honest about your current capacity. Are you building beyond what you can sustain? What would aligned growth look like at your current level of capacity? So that's another thing. You definitely do not want to ever not overexert yourself and underdeliver, but I can't remember. Yeah, I can't really remember how that goes. But anyways, the last thing you want to do is say yes to something when you know in the back of your head, I don't have capacity to do that. Like the production, like if there's any kind of production time into whatever the project is, or whatever the service is, or timeline, if the timeline is too soon, you know what I mean? Like, let's just say somebody needed a quick turnaround on something, and you're like, yeah, sure, and then in the back of your head, you're like, I don't think I can do that. Growth is not the goal. Alignment is. That is the overall arching reinforcement thought here. That's basically what we're talking about here. Because aligned growth supports your life. It protects your energy. It creates sustainability and actually feels good to maintain. You can always tell when somebody is overdoing themselves. You can always tell when somebody is acting from a place of fear or acting from, burnout. I believe that's basically everything I wanted to talk about. So with all that being said, I hope you all have been enjoying this little series. This is what Aligned Design Wisdom is all about. It's about the business side of things, building a business that doesn't just grow, but grows in a way that supports you. Because again, aligned growth supports your life, not just numbers. So, if this resonated with you, I would love for you to share it to maybe a fellow business owner, or maybe someone in your life or that you know is building something from the ground up. And as always, please make sure you comment, rate, subscribe, all those things, because it definitely helps. But also that way you don't miss an episode. So yes, I hope you all have a great rest of your week, and I will see you all in the next episode. Bye!